Good morning, guys. So today we're going to talk a little bit about bundling and responsible bundling. So let's get into it. So you see, the other day a subscriber of mine reached out, and basically in response to a comment that I had left about where we kind of talked a little bit about Webpack and bundling and all of these kind of almost it's basically standard practice these days. And these things that we do in order to provide these rich, nice web experiences to our users. And this subscriber kind of asked me about my kind of thoughts on this, because what I boldly enough stated in the comment that I got a response to was that what's nice about bundling is very different from the sort of issues that you see irresponsible developers kind of like the issues that you cause when you don't understand how to actually think about it. Is actually, it brings quite a bit of complexity with it, and it brings a lot of overhead problems that is really, it's not that great. So what I mean when I say that bundling is a great thing but irresponsible bundling causes a lot of problems is that if we take Webpack for example. Now Webpack's best part, the absolute best part about Webpack, hands down, is the module resolution system. In other words, it is a way, but Webpack allows you to write a very complicated JavaScript application, and it takes care of resolving the dependency structure. Now what I mean by that is that it used to be the case that you had to know everything about scopes. You needed to know about which order your files came in, and if you concatenated your files back into one big JavaScript file, you needed to know that it came in the right order. There was a dependency structure or a graph of dependencies. Now what Webpack allows you to do is to do what every single other programming language allows you to do. Like, let's say that you take Java. That's exactly what the package system is about. It allows you to declare packages and dependencies, and then it all gets compiled down, and the dependencies are just magically taken care of for you. That's the good part about Webpack. It allows you to write more sophisticated, larger applications without a lot of hassle with dependencies. Now the bad part, and this is the thing that I think was so stupid that we started doing, was that, oh shit, we realized that we can use Webpack for absolutely everything. It has in essence become a compiler. Today, thanks to React and tools like that, we have basically converted JavaScript and Webpack by an extension into a compiler. Because now people are loading absolutely everything. They are inlining assets such as images, they are inlining styles, they're doing all kinds of stuff. And there is a cost to this. And that's exactly what I mean by, if you do it irresponsibly, you will actually create a really bad experience for everybody. Now I'll just take one of the examples at my company. So the stack is classic what people like to call bleeding edge, cutting edge. I'm sorry, because I sound so hipster when I say, yeah, you know, I knew about this stuff before it got cool. And now I'm all about this more hipster thing where we do everything in vanilla JavaScript. I'm sorry about that. It's not about being hipster, it's about kind of proving a point here. So the bleeding edge, cutting edge, modern tech stack of today with different flavors is usually React, React Router, PostCSS, or Sass if you prefer that, inline styles, so which is using of course CSS modules, and then you inline your styles, and then you inline your images and assets and all that good stuff, and then of course you have Webpack on top of all that. Now, what's the issue with this? Well, the issue is that when you use something like a stack like this, first and foremost, what needs to happen is that you're using React. Therefore, you're most likely using JSX, which means that now you need Babel, which is a transpilation step, which means that now by necessity Webpack needs to load all of these JSX files, convert them to JavaScript, and then output the results. Why is that bad? Well, because now you went from, in plain old JavaScript, having a very fast build cycle and basically just spitting out some JavaScript, to compiling JavaScript. Now you're compiling stuff all of a sudden. Now that's not a great thing for work efficiency. This is what I keep telling people. It's actually one of my favorite, if not my favorite thing about PHP. PHP is instant gratification embodied. You make a change to your code, you refresh the page, you can immediately see your updates. that's not, and it used to be the same thing with JavaScript, but it's not the case anymore. So that's mistake number one. To have, or rather, it's not a mistake, but it becomes a problem when you use something like Material UI and all these other libraries where you have massive amounts of dependencies, right? So what's the next problem? Well, the next problem is that somebody thought, hey, we are going to inline all our styles. And my first question when somebody does this is why? What's the big benefit? What is the big benefit of CSS modules? And everybody tells me the same thing. Oh, because the namespace is unique and you're generating a hash, and then you can inline all your styles, and then you'll never get a problem with specificity and all that stuff. And I kind of go, so? What's the big benefit? I don't see the benefit. What's the big benefit of using that instead of using something like BEM, where there are no namespace collisions and you get the same results, literally the same results? And so far, everybody who's defending CSS modules and this sort of way of working can never ever been able to give me a good example of when it is so much more useful. The one thing I can admit is that if you are putting your code in a hostile environment, say that you are a third-party library provider or something like that, and you need to be sure that the styles are unique, then that's a great thing. But for the most part, you are building your own website, so you don't need it. And the cost now is that now Webpack needs to load more stuff. So now you need to generate hashes as well, which also is computation time. Said and done. Next step, all right, so now we're loading assets and images and all that good stuff and inlining that. Well, I don't have to tell you how heavy it is to inline images, for example. Now, and you see, this is the problem that I'm trying to describe to you. Webpack went from solving a fundamental, very specific issue, which was the dependency structure, to now just being this holistic way of building a front-end project. And the problem is that brings a lot of complexity with it. At my current job, before I started, because they didn't really have anybody who knew all of this stuff, they had a build time, like the recompilation time. You know, hot module reloading, for example, which is so popular. Well, it's not really hot module reloading when one reload takes 40 seconds. And 40 seconds of wait time for every time you make a change is due to these problems that I'm saying, that you have started to treat Webpack and bundling as this entire way of building an entire application, and people have gotten this idea into their heads that they need to do this. It's not so, guys. There's nothing wrong with using a CSS file or like using the established standards. If you are worried about performance or other such things that everybody's telling you is going to be the big benefit of bundling everything into your JavaScript, don't worry. There are much more efficient ways to solve that problem than just bundling everything with your JavaScript. And then finally, thanks to all of this, you get the biggest shit of the world, which is source maps. Source maps, because you're compiling everything and you are most likely uglifying it, now you need to generate source maps. And that might not be something that you think is all that heavy, but it's actually a very heavy computation. And if we go back to the beginning of my little rant here, all the simplicity that used to be the case with JavaScript has become extremely complicated, and there's a lot of overhead and knowledge. Let's not just, and I haven't even touched on all the different loaders and the tools and the configurations and so forth. If you are anything besides a Webpack expert and you're faced with this sort of challenge that I'm talking about, you will have a hell of a time trying to figure out how to solve all these issues, because it requires a lot of knowledge to maintain. Like, just this tool has grown into this, as I said, this holistic, like, compiler type of situation, which just brings all this extra overhead work with it. So what I'm trying to say here to you guys is that Webpack is bundlers overall are an amazing tool. It's a very efficient thing. You should be using them, but you have to be responsible with it. You have to remember that, you know, the goal of a bundler is not to create a holistic solution to every single problem that you have. You should be able to resolve dependencies. and efficiently build a big JavaScript application. And that can be done without inlining every style, without loading assets and images and all of this stuff. Because trust me when I say this, you don't think so when you write the first Webpack configuration or when you start writing your first lines of code. But down the road, if you keep on adding stuff to the bundler, your build cycle will take a lot of time. I can give you my number, and it's not even the biggest number. At my company, the compilation time for the project, and I said compilation time, is 13 minutes. That's how long it takes for Webpack to build the whole project. 13 minutes of wait time to just build a production build version of JavaScript. I mean, that's basically Java standards for a really big enterprise application. So what I want you to know, and what I'm going to leave you with, is this. Use Webpack, get good with it, or roll up whichever bundler you like to use, but don't forget, use it for the thing that it's good at, and that is taking care of JavaScript. Don't put everything into the bundle. Have a great day.